Thousands of unclaimed properties worth more than $40 million are unsearchable by the public in Texas because the properties lack identification. This week on Inside the Investigation, KXAN's senior investigative producer David Barrere explains how the money has ended up in the multi-billion-dollar fund without an owner's name. Welcome to Inside the Investigation. I'm Kelly Wiley, and I'm here with senior investigative producer David Barrere. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, David, this is a story, I feel like while you were doing this and prepping to publish it, everybody was coming around trying to figure out how they could find their unclaimed property. So I know this is one that people are really paying attention to. But let's start from the beginning. Give us a primer on unclaimed property.
Yeah, so everyone's interested in unclaimed property because they may be owed money.
Right.
And we all want to get our money.
We all want it, yes.
So unclaimed property is essentially any money that, and it's called property, but it's really almost all money.
Okay.
It's money that people are owed that they never received. So it could be a paycheck that you didn't cash. It could be an insurance payout, escrow. It could be a stock that you never got a hold of. Gift cards. Across the financial spectrum, there's all sorts of money that goes into this that people didn't receive. And so by law, a company is not allowed to just keep the money that they owe you because they couldn't find you or couldn't get a check to you, or because for some reason you didn't cash a check with money that you were owed. By law, they're required in Texas to return the money to the state's unclaimed property fund, which is controlled by the comptroller's office. And there it will sit forever until someone claims it. And then they will receive a check.
Well, this is good to know that they can't take it from you. It's there. It's just a matter of finding it.
Yeah.
So how can someone search for their money?
Yeah, so the most common way, the most efficient way to do it is to go to the comptroller's website, and they have a portal there where you can query their whole database and you can search by your name, and you can add where you have lived or live now or have lived in the past, the city, and that'll help narrow it down, especially if you have like a really common name. But that search system will pull up unclaimed property. For example, if I search my own name, I don't have any, but I did in the past, and it'll show how much I'm owed. It had my old address and a little bit more information, I believe, about who owed me. Okay. So there's two parties really in this transaction. There's the holder, those are the people that are trying to pay the person, and then there's the owner, and that's the person who should have received the money and that can claim it. So you can do that online. And then you can file your claim online too. I believe you can, if you're not into using computers, you could call the office and ask for help, and they may be able to offer some other ways to do it. But the main way to do it is just to go online and search your name and find property you may be owed, if you can.
If you can. Okay,
right.
So that's the crux of the issue here.
Right.
So you found thousands of properties that lack identification. So that makes it impossible to find them online.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, so the research that we didn't just like search names online. We requested and obtained the entire database of unclaimed property.
So people could also just call you to find out, maybe.
It's possible, although the database that I have is old. So it's constantly being updated. It's constantly changing because people are claiming money and new money is coming in. So it's in flux all the time. So I have a snapshot of what existed a few months ago. But yeah, I can look around for stuff.
Don't call David. It's old information. We'll put his number in the bio. But no.
Yeah, we were looking through the database and we saw, because you can search and you can look through sort of like a spreadsheet and look at everyone's name, and we were seeing things that didn't look like a name. There were a lot of them called unknown at conversion. There were some called aggregate. There were some under the name of well, I've written some down. You said it was $40 million, so, and I'll go into some specifics. 2,200 properties valued over $26 million, all with the name unknown at conversion. 2,800 properties valued over $12 million with names like Undivided or Undivided Researched. 800 properties worth 1.6 million listed under the with a name the owner was the Comptroller of Public Accounts, or similar names like Texas Comptroller. And the Comptroller is the one who's in charge of the fund, so it didn't make a lot of sense that they would be owed the money and not have claimed it. So, yeah, we knew that there were properties here that weren't really searchable, and there's nobody named unknown at conversion in Texas. And so there are various reasons behind those, but those properties are essentially unsearchable by the public.
And they're not small amounts. This is a lot of money that you've kind of linked to these unknown, no-name accounts.
Yeah, and they are big batches of money. Some of them were tens of thousands or over $100,000. And the reason for that in some cases was something called aggregation, which I can get into a little bit later. Other reasons are that sometimes there are just data problems with computer systems that companies have. Big companies convert their data from one system to another, and it may juggle some stuff around, and then there's a certain amount of money that's, properties in their system that they can't link to a name, so that could be a problem. There's other things like gift cards, for example, that are anonymous to begin with. A company that sells a gift card that isn't used, they don't get to just keep the money. They're supposed to relinquish that, but it's not really associated with the person. So that's another issue. And then there are things like in Texas, we have oil and gas royalties and revenues, and those can be divided up in pools in very complicated ways. And so that can cloud ownership and cause things to not be labeled in a way that are searchable. So those are some of the reasons why, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of money in there. We found $40 billion. We're not overestimating. I think that's an underestimate because there's more stuff in there that we didn't find. So there's the database that we got had more than 30 million rows, and so there's a lot in there that I didn't look through, individually.
Right.
But this money can't really be searched by the public.
So the state can't do anything with it. They can't put it to some better cause. People who,
Well, not really. The money, it's a good point to bring up. The money is held there, or at least there's a place marker for it.
Okay.
The state is required to pay that money back for a valid claim in perpetuity. But in the meantime, the state knows that they're not going to have to return all the money tomorrow. There's a certain amount of money that is probably never going to be returned. And, just knowing how year by year they calculate how much money comes in through unclaimed property, and they calculate how much money goes out because of claims. And the amount of money coming in always exceeds the amount going out from claims. So what the state does is they transfer a lot of it to the general fund and use it every year. So it is used. But at the same time, the state maintains that anyone who has a claim that's valid, they will pay it.
Okay. So what did the comptroller have to say about all of this?
The comptroller acknowledged that there are properties in there that are the way I just described it. They're pretty much impossible to find through the search. And they acknowledge the different reasons that I just explained, like for why these things would exist that way. But they said they do, there are other ways that people, if they feel that there is something in there that they are owed that they're not finding, that there are other avenues that they can use to try to get reunited with their money. They can contact the comptroller's office, ask for additional searches, provide more information. Like, for example, if you had an old gift card, like a big gift card, and and you had the number on it, they may have that information in the back end of their database that you can't get publicly, that can help them potentially get you that money. So there is more information in the comptroller side of the data that isn't publicly accessible, that can help link people up with money that they may be not able to search online. You know, they have like social security numbers, they have dates of birth, stuff that they wouldn't release to the public. So there are ways that they can facilitate reuniting people with money that exceed what you can find in the search portal. So, and then I wrote down here, I'm going to go over some of the things that the comptroller said also. They said they expanded an outreach program, they improved their search tool online, they launched a direct mail check program that proactively sends payments to people that they've verified the ownership for eligible properties of less than $5,000. And you know, they are returning money consistently every year. They're bringing in more than they return, but the returns depend on a claim typically. So people, you know, should know that the money is there and try to search for it and get it because you're owed. But for example, Glenn Hager, who used to be the comptroller, he stepped down in 2024. His office put out a press release that said they had paid out $3 billion in unclaimed property over the last 9 years of his administration, including $422 million in fiscal 2024. So that they called that a landmark achievement. And you know, they're still trying to make people aware of the Unclaimed Property Fund. Kelly Hancock, the acting comptroller, who is now the outgoing comptroller, came on our air last December and did a little advertisement for unclaimed property, and he told, you know, I think he did an interview with Avery. But he told
our
her,
investigator, yes.
Yes. He told her that there were 5.7 million Austin area residents and business owners that were owed $622 million in unclaimed property.
Okay.
So that's our local population. So that's an example of them trying to, you know, publicize the fund and get people to try to claim their money. So yeah, that's a lot of what the comptroller's office said. They also acknowledged that something I brought up earlier, the aggregate properties. They acknowledge that those are not barred by law. So aggregate properties are a subset of some of the properties that we found that lack identification, but we didn't identify all the aggregate properties. But an aggregate property is when a company owes, just hypothetically, they owe thousands of people $5.
Okay.
So there is a rule that can allow them to just put all that money into one property and submit it to the comptroller's office with a name like unknown at conversion or aggregate. And so you couldn't search, if you were owed $5 and it had been lumped into that big sum, you wouldn't be able to search it online.
So then what's the point of that? Why would they be allowed to do something like that?
My understanding is that it goes back to a previous era of reporting when reporting was based on paper and companies were having to, you know, literally print out thousands and thousands of sheets of paper to account for potentially extremely small amounts owed, down to like a nickel or a dollar. And so to help them, they were allowed to aggregate properties. Now, that paper reporting process is done.
Right.
Things are reported online through essentially like a spreadsheet type format. So there's not really any like extra burden for reporting 20 versus 10,000. It's all kind of the same. You don't have to print anything out. But the law still allows it. So it does happen in some cases. My understanding is that the comptroller's office strongly discourages it and requires some justification for an entity using that avenue, but it is still, it's not barred by law to do it.
And is there any interest from lawmakers to rectify that, to now file some legislation that, okay, we're not worried about you having to print out thousands of pieces of paper and mailing it out now or reporting it that way? Is there any will to say, let's update our laws so that it works better for people?
That's a good question. We didn't talk to lawmakers on it for this report, but we did talk to the two candidates for comptroller. They're not going to be a lawmaker if they win that office, but they would be an influential person in a statewide office that could push for something like that. The two candidates are, if you're wondering.
Yeah, tell us, yes.
The two candidates are Sarah Eckhart. She's a Democrat from Austin, and she's an attorney, former county judge, and current state lawmaker, senator. And she was interested in all these issues that we went over, and looking at unclaimed property and getting it returned to people and improving the system to the extent possible. Her opponent, Don Huffines, is her Republican challenger, and he is a Dallas area businessman, and he's a former state senator. And he's also very interested in trying to reform the system and get money back to people as much as possible, and talked about how the money's not the state's money, it's people's money and should be returned. And Sarah Eckhart said something similar. So regarding unclaimed property, the two candidates are on a similar page. They want this system to work well. They want money returned to people as best as it can be. There's not much of a ideological or political difference there. It's they're both interested in having this office and fund run properly and as much money as possible going out to the people that are owed.
So it sounds like the headline really for people that are listening is, if you really think you're owed money and you're having a hard time searching it, it may be worth it to go the extra mile and get in touch with the comptroller's office to make sure that there's not some other way to figure it out.
Yes, I think that if you're pretty certain there's something in there that you're not finding, that you could go that route and you can put that to bed. Clear it up and make sure you're not owed something.
Yeah. Well, David, I'm interested in this report. Every time I search my name, nothing comes up, which is annoying, but I know people are really caring about this report. It's fantastic reporting. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You can watch all new episodes of Inside the Investigation on the KXAN Plus app every Friday starting at 1 p.m. Just search for KXAN on your preferred streaming devices, such as Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. You can also listen to KXAN's investigative podcast, where we feature audio versions of our weekly Inside the Investigation episodes. You can find new episodes every Saturday morning wherever you get podcasts. Just search for KXAN Investigates.